If you're an HR professional who works hard to fill roles within your company, keep employees engaged, and build company culture, welcome to America Back to Work, where dreams only work if we do. We'll share wide-ranging issues surrounding pre-employment background screening, HR topics such as recruiting, hiring, labor trends, and company culture, as well as broader HR-influenced business topics such as customer experience, service level excellence, and protecting what matters through best practices in prevention, protection, and corporate security. America Back to Work is brought to you by S2 Verify. Here's your host, Arnette Heintze.
Welcome to America Back to Work, brought to you by S2 Verify, where our purpose is to help you hire with confidence and manage insider risk. I'm your host, Arnette Heintze. Thank you for joining. Today, our guest is Lauren Winans. Lauren is the CEO of Next Level Benefits, a company she founded in 2019 to offer HR teams access to former corporate HR professionals on demand. Before she founded her company, she served as a senior HR leader and managed all aspects of health, welfare, absence management, and retirement at General Nutrition Centers, American Eagle Outfitters, and Consol Energy. Lauren, that's quite an impressive list of firms you've been working with, and I want to thank you so much for joining us today. Would you mind sharing a little bit more about this impressive background and more about your company?
Sure. Thanks so much for having me. Very much appreciate being here. My background, about 20 years in corporate HR roles, mainly in employee benefits leadership. Really tried to figure out what my next step might be. And as I was in these roles, I always thought, it would be great just to be able to pull in an HR expert, a couple times a year when we need them, maybe even lean on them for some advice, extra hands, what have you. And that's really what helped me to kind of launch this business, which is almost 4 years old now. 4 years ago, kind of started the business with the intent of being focused on employee benefits and compensation consulting, but quickly expanded to all areas of HR. And so our company, Next Level Benefits, is really focused on providing access to HR professionals when you need it. There's so many HR teams out there, as well as business owners who would love to have access to expertise, but not necessarily, hire a full-time resource or add a headcount. And so that's what we try to offer is, hands when you need it. And when you don't need us, we're here on the sidelines waiting for you.
Yep. So is that experience mindset that you have right there, did that come with you during your career in these various organizations across the country?
Yes and no. I mean, yes, meaning that, I always kind of, saw HR teams as being so lean and really trying to do so much with so little. And so, it was always a problem for me. And then, part of my background is really, I have an entrepreneurial spirit and kind of always was looking for the right opportunity to start my own thing. And so the combination of the two just proved to be, pretty much a no-brainer. Especially, I didn't want to throw away 20 years of HR experience, but I wanted to try something new. And so I married the two together.
Yeah, that's fabulous. So your company is a leading HR consultancy, and part of your business model is to match your consultants with companies and then embed them with the client teams. Can you tell us how you decided to adopt that model and how it works practically?
Yeah, I like the idea of when we provide support to an HR team, I like the idea of being able to help the team to leverage the experience of the expert who's working with them. And so we thought the easiest way to do that is really to provide that fractional interim type, resource model. And so, we really pride ourselves in doing that. So the company gets an opportunity to tackle the project that needs to be done. The leader gets an opportunity to potentially learn from the consultant. And so does the team. And the team also gets the benefit of having someone else coming in with extra hands, which allows them to focus on other priorities, maybe, eliminate some of the burnout that they've been experiencing. And so it ends up being, really kind of a great model that helps HR teams to accelerate some of their projects, but also be able to learn, develop, grow, and maybe take a break.
Yeah. So if you were to make an analysis of who benefits the most from embedded or fractional employees, where do you come out on that? And then for the clients that use you, is there a framework or characterization of a client that best fits this model?
Fortunately, all industries, all sizes have really been able to benefit from something that we're able to do for them. Even those who don't have an HR team, we work with, a variety of different business owners at different stages in their organizations. And so HR expertise is pretty transferable. And so while it's great to have some level of experience, going into working with a particular client who might be of a certain industry, it doesn't necessarily prevent us from being successful and efficient in providing the services that we offer. As far as who I think benefits most, honestly, I would have to say it's the teams that we end up coming in and working with. It's not necessarily the leader. I do think that employees benefit from our involvement as well because, the teams that we're working with are getting introduced to new ideas and concepts that they maybe not have thought of before or had interaction with or experience with. And so we're able to kind of, embed an HR expert into the group such that everyone benefits. But I really do think it's the teammates themselves. They're able to learn and they're also able to feel like the pressure is kind of off of them to get this project done. They've got someone to help them through it.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned the word team. So let's talk about team structure and what you're seeing as some of the trends you've seen over the last couple of years in how HR leaders are organizing their teams, full-time, part-time, generalist, specialist. What's your thoughts there?
I would say pre-pandemic, what feels like many, many years ago now, I would say that there was definitely a more prescribed structure, right? There'd be different functions within HR and there'd be, a recipe for, a leadership level, maybe a supervisory level and a handful of analysts and or coordinators, that would kind of report up into that function. And I think, though, that, as we've learned over the last few years in particular, there's a different way to go about things. And I think there's a lot of evaluation is going on right now, happening right now, really around, do we need as many full-time folks on the team because we could potentially be leveraging external resources to help us get through certain projects or certain busy times of year. I'm also seeing a lot of HR teams being very critical around, okay, what do we need to be successful? And having that be their starting point as opposed to how much work do we need to get done? And I think that just by shifting the mindset a little bit, you can really kind of look at this problem from a different angle. And ultimately, I think that teams are going to run as lean as they always have, but start to get really creative about how they do that. That might be a mix of, more folks at a generalist level and then pulling in specialized experts externally as projects arise. It could also look something like having more of a leadership structure that's pretty lean, but many more boots on the ground. It just kind of depends upon, I think, what is going to work best for a particular organization. But what I'm encouraged about is that leaders, CHROs, chief people officers, they're really taking the time to take a look at their structures and figure out what's going to work best and not necessarily assuming that typical cookie cutter design.
Yeah. So on leaders that you work with, if you were to advise them of a couple of mistakes that have been made when it comes to designing team structures, have you got a point or two that you can offer there?
I would definitely say that, making assumptions around how much work is there and how the team is operating is boo-boo number one. I would definitely focus on getting factual information from your team and really kind of assessing workload before making assumptions on how that team should be structured, how many different people they need within the department. I think it really is important to listen to the employees and really understand kind of what they're faced with regularly before making any assumptions about what that structure should look like. I would also argue too that there's absolutely an opportunity to work in part-time help, as well as contractors, as well as consultants, as well as vendors, to potentially be carrying some of the workload that maybe a full-time headcount is doing today and maybe not doing it as efficiently as they could be. So I those would be my two things, is just, really, really listen to your employees and really consider some creative thoughts around how to build out your team.
Yeah. And I know my next question kind of really relates to the size of a company, but is there a team structure that you tend to see work better most of the time?
Honestly, the team structure I'm seeing most recently with most of our clients right now that I think is working really well is having, you naturally have an executive leader, and then you have functional heads of each area of HR. And then you have, folks that are able to be both tactical and strategic. So I wouldn't necessarily add in that manager layer. I would think more about, okay, how do we get this work done in a tactical way, but also bring in people into this organization that have a strategic view of how we can evolve our HR function over time. And so I'm kind of seeing that more of that, more of a, let's say, a senior coordinator, senior analyst type role is taking over more of those positions as opposed to a manager or a senior manager. So just kind of tweaking the model a little bit and spreading those dollars in different ways, I think is making a big difference.
Yeah. So if you've got a fast-paced growing business today, I would assume that the leaders are going to constantly need to be assessing the team structure and figuring out going forward how they should best align it. And that's an area of support that your team offers as well, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, we a variety of different clients that we work with, we end up having to kind of assess their existing talent structure, help them figure out how to expand, also help them figure out how to contract. There are times of year where, depending upon what type of industry you're in or what type of company you have, there might be some volatility in the dollars that are coming in. And so when top line growth slows, we also kind of help figure out how do we manage the employee population such that your employee costs and expenses are not exceeding the revenue that's coming in. And so we do spend a lot of time working with clients, figuring out the best workforce strategy that can be, transferable, agile enough to kind of change and with the ebbs and flows of the business.
As you consider the work your team is doing now, and you've got consultants working with a variety of clients, what are some of the trends that you're seeing and the type of projects that are evolving? Can you offer some insight into that?
Sure. A lot of our work ends up being more cyclical, and mainly because HR is a cyclical function, right? There's certain times of year where you're focused on, you might be focused on growth, bringing, folks in through the talent acquisition function. You may be focused on performance management as you're helping people to set their goals and meet them. Focused on compensation for that annual comp review, merit increase, bonus payout. And then also with employee benefits, typically there's an annual enrollment period where employees have access to making changes to their coverage. And so we tend to see that, most organizations kind of follow a very similar strategic process, which kind of pulls us into these different projects at different times of year, but ultimately around the same. So right now we're actually seeing a lot of benefits projects kind of creeping up because open enrollment typically happens in the fall for most organizations. But we also spend a lot of time with our clients on compensation planning. We do a lot related to the talent acquisition space as it relates to strategy and process flow, making sure that the candidate experience is one that is fruitful and valuable for all players that are a part of the mix. We also take a lot of time taking a look at compliance pieces of our clients' structures. Do you have the right people in place to ensure that the compliance is aligned to federal, state, and other legislation? And then, of course, we do spend a lot of time kind of evaluating and assessing benefits plans and helping employers to identify kind of where they fit in the marketplace in terms of how they compete with their competitors. What are they offering to talent that is keeping talent in the seats? And so we help with that as well.
Yeah, fabulous. So you're seeing a variety of trends that are coming out of these team designs and project priorities. What does that have to say about the state of HR today?
Very great question. Honestly, I would have to say that, the trends I'm seeing right now is HR teams are very, very focused on figuring out the best way to prepare either their own personal teams and or the employees of an organization to prepare them for more agility, for more flexibility, for more versatility. That takes a lot of training, that takes a lot of conversation, that takes a lot of, leadership development. And so I do see trends kind of moving in that direction, that career development, career coaching, leadership development, leadership coaching is all something that's getting more traction than it ever has. Because I think there is definitely, we're losing some knowledge as folks leave the workforce, whether it be through retirement or whether it be through leaving the workforce to take care of, family, friends, children. And so we need folks to kind of come in and help kind of ground people and help them to understand what type of soft skills they need to bring to the conversation, how to be an employee that can maybe play a variety of different roles within an organization. So I think training and coaching is really becoming a much bigger trend as of late. And I'm really excited to see that.
Oh, great. So let's take a moment and think about the HR pros that are out there. And if they are contemplating their next step, their next future opportunity, are there any particular skills that you would recommend that they make sure they're focusing on to building that capability and position themselves for these future roles?
Absolutely. I definitely would highly recommend that that all HR professionals go through some level of conflict resolution training. Also, take a close look at different types of trainings that focus on soft skills and how to interact with younger generations in developing those soft skills. I think that is, certainly I don't know what I don't know about AI, but as AI evolves itself, I do see that most folks who are entering the workforce today are going to need more development around, how to interact with different people, because most of their job may be kind of, leveraged by AI and not necessarily be as tactical as it used to be. And so I would really encourage HR professionals to focus on making sure that they've got, the foundations of, the HR function kind of under their belt, and also take it a step further to really make sure that they understand how to coach employees and leaders around soft skill development and what that is and what that looks like.
Yeah. Lauren, and your insights in talking about AI couldn't have been more timely. I just finished a conversation with John Rod, who's the founder of a firm called Perceptual, which is helping HR professionals, maneuver the rules and regulations and the laws that are coming about in this space. So very timely.
Yeah.
Before we sign off, I'd like to ask you a question that I ask every guest, and that question is, if S2 Verify were to conduct a background screening on you, would there be any surprises?
I love that question. And I am probably the most boring person on earth. So no, there would be no surprises, unfortunately. But I'd love to maybe find out who you talk with who does have some sort of surprises. That could be really fun to see.
Well, I'm gonna challenge you on the most boring person because I found our conversation very enlightening. So thank you so much, and congratulations on next level benefits and all that you guys are doing.
Thank you so much.
And as we finish off here, Lauren, why don't you tell our audience where they can follow you, keep up with what's going on?
Sure. Yeah, you can reach out to us through our website, nlbenefits.com. That's NL standing for next level. And so you can also follow us on Instagram or LinkedIn. Just type in next level benefits or NL benefits and you'll find us. And you can always reach me via email at Lauren at nlbenefits.com.
That's fabulous. So thank you so much, Lauren. And before we sign off, I do have a minute I'd like to spend with my partners, Bill and Jim at S2 Verify. An area that I think our clients are going to want to have some insight into is a little bit around our vision, mission, purpose, core values, and beliefs, value propositions. The three of us have spent countless hours, really giving a deliberate look into these elements and making sure that we establish the best that, our team can embrace and our clients can appreciate. When it comes to the core values, we've got a concept that we've identified as trust, which is trust, respect, understanding, services, and transparency. Of those elements, Bill, any of them that jump out at the top of your mind? I mean, they're all equally important. I think we would all say that. But what comes to your mind when we talk about these elements of trust?
I think it's trust and transparency for me. I mean, at the end of the day, our clients, I want to make sure they feel trusting us to do their backgrounds professionally, correctly, that what we're reporting is correct, that we're going to the, utmost detail to make sure that this is the individual that it is. So I think for them, for me, it's trust, and then transparency, making sure that, they understand that, whatever we're doing, we share it with them. So if something's taking a little longer, and again, we have to be careful because of the SCRA, we tell them, well, it's a county clerk assisted search, so we have to wait on the clerk. And so we're good about communicating to the client to make sure they understand that there are things outside of our control that, we're waiting on the clerk or the county or the systems down in, certain counties, and we'll have to do a different type of search. So those are two for me is trust and transparency.
Jim, how about you?
Arnette, as you know from me, my number one focus has always been our culture. And in the way of building culture, it's trust and respect. Culture is so dependent upon those variables. It's one of the things that Billy and I have been doing at Yale is we've got to get them to trust us first, right? And respect why we're doing what we're doing, how we're doing what we're doing it, how we're doing it. And then, if you will, then build that culture around those two topics. But historically, no matter where I've been, I'm sure the same for you and Billy, if we're failing on trust and no one trusts us, our customers don't trust us, we've built that customer trust around doing what we say we're going to do. And we do it every time. If you don't do that, then the trust and respect kind of goes out the window.
For our audience, please tune in next week when we talk about managing complex employee relations issues with Amanda Hadaway. She's the managing director of HR Answer Box. We'll see you then. And it goes without saying, let's get America back to work, because dreams only work if we do. Lauren, thank you so much for joining today.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
If you want to stay abreast of HR, recruiting, and hiring trends, tips, and tools, make sure you subscribe to America Back to Work. If you enjoyed this episode, leave us a rating and a review.